time for another round of questions and answers with SnapChick. So let's get right to it. The first question is from Will John. I hope I said that right. He says, "Hey SnapChick, what is your best or favorite everyday use lens for a cropped DSLR camera and why?" I can't pick a favorite. It's like picking my favorite shoes or my favorite food. I just can't do it. But let's see. Seriously, I would say that I have different lenses for different reasons. But the ones that I would use for walking around, typically, I would reach for my 35mm f1.8 or my 18-200 VR lens. I love them. Some of you, though, may recall that I have the great 17-55 and 70-200 f2.8 lenses. But I tend to use those while I'm working. When I think of everyday use, I think of lightweight and fun. So the 35mm, the 18-200, those are the ones I really go for when I'm just, going for fun. David says, when you shoot weddings, what memory cards do you carry with you? What's in the camera bodies? Do you feel it's better to use several smaller cards or a pair of larger cards? Also, for a typical wedding, how many photos do you have at the end of the night? And when you start the go-through. Okay, let's see. I've used a lot of different brands of cards, and I've been happy with all of them pretty much. I do use larger cards in my camera when I'm shooting a wedding. I prefer not to be changing cards all the time. That drives me crazy. Currently, I have a couple of 16GB cards in my D300S. And cameras like the D300S with 2 card slots give you instant backup and peace of mind, which is nice. Although I always have extra cards with me, you just never know. Bring extras just in case. As for how many photos I have at the end of the night, it's always different. I take pictures the whole time I'm there. I am a busybody photographer. So you can imagine that, at the end of a longer wedding, I have a lot of photos. So I take a long time in the initial selection process. Let's see. Ryan says, is bigger always better? And he says, yes, I'm talking about you, Mr. D800. Is bigger always better? No way. The best camera is the one that you have in your hand, I guess, is what people say, and it's true. Furthermore, everybody has different needs. You can't say that one camera or one type of camera is best for everybody, because everybody wants their camera for something different. The next question is from, Leigh. Oh, I'm sorry. I have no idea how to say that name. Anyway, he says, are you the same type as you appear on videos, i.e. cute and funny and sexy as well? Well, first of all, thanks. And second of all, yeah, this is me. I may not be very good at pronouncing everybody's names, but I try to have fun. Okay, next. Kurt had a few questions. The first one is, how does sensor size affect depth of field? It sort of affects depth of field. If we had a bunch of different cameras with different sensor sizes and we made prints all of exactly the same size with the cameras, the cameras with the smaller sensors would appear to have more depth of field. If you've shot with a compact digital camera with a very small sensor, you'll have noticed that almost everything is always in focus. So smaller sensor size usually means, more depth of field. What is the optimal aperture for portraits is his next question. There's no one aperture that is optimal for all portraits. It depends on the look you're going for. However, if you're going for the classic, subject is crisp, but most other things are slightly blurred, I find that f4 works well, at least if I'm, around 10 feet from the subject. The distance between your subject and the background and how you want the background to appear will normally drive your choice of aperture. So, how does one visualize an 8x10 crop in the viewfinder? That is, if the DSLR sensor does not have the same ratio as an 8x10 print, how does one know how to frame the original shot to minimize cropping and also avoid losing critical parts of the photo in order to make it fit? all I can say is that it takes practice. Some cameras will help you with it with 8x10 crop lines and even 8x10 crop modes. The cameras I own do not have these, so it's something that I need to actually actively think about if I'm shooting for an 8x10. Next, Darren says, where is the best place to get models while I'm still learning? What is the best way to approach a girl you see around town that you would like to photograph without seeming sleazy? Well, first off, I suggest looking for models on modeling websites like Model Mayhem or on Craigslist. Second, I'm not sure there is a way to approach a girl you see around town without seeming sleazy. However, if you see the right person with the right look, strike up a conversation with them and take a chance. You got nothing to lose. Personally, I stick with Craigslist and modeling websites. Mark says, though not a technical question, I think it's important. Do you consider post-processing a part of the photographic process, or are you from the school of thought that believes that it's an added step that takes away from the original art? I'm neither, or at least I'm somewhere in between, I guess. I love to get a great image right out of my camera. However, there's definitely an art to processing an image. I don't mind working on an image in post-processing to get just the look I'm after. Typically, I prefer a more natural look to photos, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I prefer no processing at all. Depending on what my goal is or what a photo's for, I may even grunge up the image a little bit and give it kind of an even more natural look than the original image was. Let's see. Oh, next page. Then Kurt says, Mark, interesting question. SnapChick, would you consider the work of Ansel Adams to have taken from the original art? I'm not going to say that Ansel Adams or any photographer is any less of a photographer or their photos any less artsy because they worked on their photos in a dark room or a light room. I would say that everyone has to make the decision for themselves to post-process or not post-process. Totally up to you. I'm not going to say either way. Let's see, last question of the day. Ben says, I've heard you and others talk about experimenting with different apertures to see what the effect is on depth of field. I've done a little of this, but it still always seems to be a crapshoot every time I want to get a certain effect in a picture. And the only way to get the result I'm looking for is to take multiple shots. Do you eventually learn to get it right the first time? Well, I wouldn't say that I have learned to get it right the first time. I do get to know my equipment and the distances and stuff. Like, the cameras and the lenses combinations, and then in combination with aperture and, distance combinations, the more practice you have, the more comfortable you're going to be with what your camera's going to do. In addition to setting the aperture, your distance as a photographer to the subject, and then their distance from the background has a strong impact on the depth of field. If you have, a particular setup in mind, there are many depth of field calculators online, and even some phone apps which will help you calculate depth of field for a given set of circumstances. So that can help you out a little bit. So that's it for the day.